Hello, everyone. I am being told that I do not have a video source. I absolutely hope that I can be heard. I'm going to make this a test to see whether or not I can be heard. I'm going to check my phone. If anyone is listening and is a friend of mine or can message me and let me know either way whether or not I can be heard, that would be great. The new tools that Facebook has is let's say that they are not my favorite things. Every single time Facebook comes up with an improvement, well, not exactly an improvement from my point of view, but that's okay. If it turns out that you can't hear me, you guys get to have the wonderful privilege of looking at big hair and big earrings because we're talking about big subjects. The title of this is Conversation, Contempt, Civility, and CRT, and Discourse. It is really important that we are able to have free and open and even freewheeling and down and dirty discourse in Lace on Race. I realize that a lot of you who lurk, tell me in private messages or face to face if you're here in San Diego. I would love to post, but I'm not entirely sure whether or not I'm going to say the right or wrong thing. I'm not entirely sure whether or not um, what I say is going to be heard well, and it makes me really nervous, so I just don't post at all. And I would like to dissuade you from that. I think that it is incredibly important that you take the plunge, take the leap. Yes, are there guidelines for discourse and how we interact with each other with kind candor and what I am now going to start calling HH, Hesed Hearts? But I think that if you're here, and even if you only have so far a cursory knowledge of what I mean by those terms, kind candor, hesed heart, you've only been here a little bit, or you've been here a while, but you're still not quite ready to dip your toe into the water. If you're here and you have at least a glancing knowledge of our five, which are going to become six tenets, if you know or you've read our guidelines, and most importantly, if you've read and you at least on some level um, buy into and align with our North Star. And I have been remiss in saying it, so I'm going to say it now. It used to be de rigueur that I would say it for every single video. The North Star of Lace on Race is simple and encompassing, lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. If you are watching me now, I am making some assumptions about you, some happy assumptions about you. I am assuming that you agree with this, agree with every single word of it, actually, that there has been harm endured by Black and brown people since the first group of Africans came on these shores in 1619, and even before that with indigenous populations, and I count myself in both of those cohorts, that it has been perpetuated by white people through white supremacy and racism. We also agree with some other things here. And I want to be sure to show my cards here because I think it's important. I think it's important to say to people who have been here for a while, people who are lurking and are still a month, 6 months, a year, 3 years in, still not sure. What is Lace on Race about? What does she believe? What is she asking us to believe? Well, I'm asking you to believe that people of color, Black and brown people, have endured immeasurable harm, starting from over 400 years ago and continuing into the present day, and that it is our charge for all of us, Black, white, Latino, Asian, and other cohorts such as millennials, boomers, LGBT, the disabled community, to confront and challenge the prevailing that has led to and continues to enact and inflict harm upon these cohorts. as I was doing my very big hair, wow, I was thinking about this. There, if you go into the posts, there is a post about critical race theory, and it's like, if you don't believe it, and it's hypocritical race theory. There's a little bit of sarcasm there, and um, people took it seriously, and some people took it quite critically. There's a cohort of people here that do not necessarily buy into either critical race theory itself or the ethos of Lace on Race. I will let you go there. You'll see it. It's fairly high up there. Won't be hard to find, and you'll be able to see it. I have gone into discourse with one person in particular whose name I will not mention, but again, you'll see it. It's really hard to talk about the provocative, the controversial, even though the tenets of critical race theory, if you're here listening to me, aren't all that controversial at all. We're going to get to that. But before we get to that, I'm going to do here what I did with the commenter. I want to talk about not just the what, the issue of critical race theory. And it is an important issue, and we need to get to it. But we also need to talk about the who and the how. Who are we as we have these conversations? So important, so important. And how do we have these conversations with H.H. Hesed Heart? I love it. I already love it. It's amazing the things that I come up with when I'm putting on eyeliner. Hesed Heart. Hesed Heart is what allows us here at Lace on Race to be able, to have the courage to say what we want to say, to be able to take the risk to come in here with fellow walkers and compatriots, knowing that they will be met, that you will be met with love and with a good bottle of cold water on the way. That we are firmly, to mix my metaphors, that we are firmly buckled into the seat in the car with you, and we are not going to leave you. Hesed means that we are not hearts and flowers. We are not nice at Lace on Race. We are kind. And that brings us to another part of our ethos that we try to inculcate and live out in our conversations. And that if you're watching me, you probably already do. But I do want to talk about it a little bit more. Kind candor. Candor without kindness is a cudgel. It's one of the losing strategies. It's part of unbridled self expression, honestly. Kindness without candor, kindness stripped of truth telling and risk, becomes just generic, run of the mill, house brand, single ply niceness. We're not about that either. Here at Lace on Race, we ask you to hold two things in your hand all at once: the kindness, absolutely, and the candor. When we're talking about issues such as critical race theory, for one thing, people who come in here, even if they're not entirely sure what CRT is, most of the time, once they know about it, they shrug. Why is this hard? But some people have a problem with it. Some people come in here not to learn, not to commune. They do not come in with Hesed heart. They do not come in with kind candor. They come in with every one of the losing strategies in flaming relief. And the one we're going to talk about, well, the two we're going to talk about, because I think that they are linked, is contempt. And part of contempt is unbridled self expression. That includes sarcasm, that includes top down, that includes setting yourself above and apart. We don't do that here. We don't feel we have to. I think one of the greatest things that we bring to the discussion of race is not just talking about race. I mean, everybody who's been here for any length of time already knows about the bait and switch, right? Bring you in on race, keep you here on applied relational ethics. I show my cards. When you look down at that post about critical race theory versus hypocritical race theory, um, you will see that the poster that I'm talking about is trying for a gotcha moment. That's hard to do when you don't know what you're talking about and when you don't have a working knowledge of what you're critiquing, which is why we are going to go into the very basics, and I do mean Wikipedia level critical race theory. Kimberly Crenshaw, the woman who coined the term intersectionality, which has now suffered from a lot of mission drift. And here at Lace on Race, and me particularly, I am on a mission in the same way that I am on a mission to source and find 6 packs of A&W Zero Sugar. It's not as easy to find in San Diego as you would think. To be able to do these things. So when we're talking about these provocative things that most people wouldn't have a problem with, but let's, for a moment, before we even talk about contempt and unbridled self-expression, let's talk about mission drift for a moment. Let's talk about what dominant culture a lot of times does with concepts and phrases and precepts that are benign. Critical race theory is benign. We'll get to it. We'll get to it, I promise. But all of a sudden, it's nefarious. And if you'll read the poster, he brings up Marxism, and of course, he brings up the old trope: it's a cult. I thought we were done with the whole cultish thing. Apparently, I need to bring my saffron robes out of storage and start wearing them because the accusations have started up again. Anybody who talks about critical race theory is a cult. Now, we're going to talk about this, and we're going to talk about some specific things that are said, but I want you to focus less on the what, and I want you to really focus, if you can, I want you to focus on the how and the who. There is a certain disingenuousness about someone trying for a gotcha moment with me and with the space and with the community who doesn't show their own hand. Yeah, it's not hard to click through and see people's profiles and see what they're about. And if there's not a whole lot there, that in itself is telling. If you click through to my personal profile, it's set to public. You are going to know way more than you ever wanted to know about me. Transparency and openness are hallmarks of a consistent universal praxis. And it's one thing that I try very hard to be. There's very little that I don't show. I mean, I don't give you the ins and outs of my diabetes regimen, but you know I have one. The reason for that is that as I'm giving you things, as I'm advancing ideas and theses and thoughts and overarching themes, who is telling you this matters. If I am going to flap my jaws about Hesed heart, about kind candor, about being the person you say you want to be, then I better be able to whip open the curtains. Well, I can't right now because I still have plastic, but if I had curtains and glass doors, I would fling open the curtains and you would see everything. Transparency and authenticity and congruence, I think, are absolutely essential for anyone who would dare have the arrogance, and I do, who would dare have the arrogance to speak to you and to tell you and to suggest and exhort you to not just what to do or what not to do, but also who to be. There are people that you're trying to change people, and they expect me to walk that back. Oh no, I'm not trying to change anyone. Are you kidding me? Yes, I absolutely. I'm trying to change people in the same way that I endeavor every single day to change myself, to become a better lace, the person, and lace on race, the persona. There's a lot of overlap, but there's some slivers of divergence, to become a better person and a better leader than I was yesterday. And then tomorrow, when I wake up, hopefully I'm a better person and a better leader than I am today. That is change work. That is examining not just what I say or what I do, but why I'm doing it. We've talked about this when it comes to activist consumerism, boycotts, divestiture, all of that fun stuff. And we're going to talk about that too. This is just so important. And what I thought would be a very benign, sort of funny meme has taken on a life of its own, and it needs to be addressed. In terms of who I am, not only on my personal page, there is nothing that you are not going to find in the pinned posts and in the foundational documents. The pinned posts are here at the Lace on Race page. The foundational documents, I think we call them starters. We call them starters, are on the Lace on Race website in the bistro. There's no way by the time you finish them, and I hope you do. If you haven't read the pinned posts, read them. Read them. You're going to know pretty much everything about me, except for my shoe size, 9 or 8.5 wide. I find that those work too. And my eyeliner technique, which I have learned a new way, and I actually am going to do 3 videos about face. Wait, hold on. Face, hair, and nails as they connect to and align with racial justice praxis. And yes, everything is indeed about race, original poster. Here's the thing. When people try to do gotcha moments are rooted in what? Wait for it, contempt. I am waiting for you to trip up. I hope that you trip up. Except the things that he's accusing me of are in so many documents over the last 3.5 years of Lace on Race, as well as the last, wait for it, 35 years, because I'm a little old, 35 years of social change work, that nothing should be a surprise to anyone. So when something is said in an accusatory way, you think that Black people have been harmed by white supremacy. I do. Yes. Keep going. What else do you think I think? You think that white people are bad. You think you hate white people. See, right there, right there. A, thank you for telling me what I think, because absent your input, I would have no idea what's going on in this noggin, but it's also wrong. But if things are said often enough, if falsehoods are spread often enough, and we saw this with Holly and Annie and Chris, if falsehoods are spread enough, people start to believe them. And even if they say they don't believe them, it's like an earwig. It gets in your ear, and then it's like, and everything is tempered with that. That's one reason why, even though we haven't lost eyeballs, we've lost money, because nobody wants to give money to a charlatan, narcissistic cult leader, right? We're going to talk about that too. But again, going back to telling you who you are, that is definitely a form of contempt. Because here's what contempt lacks, as opposed to eye to eye, full respect, nonviolent living, nonviolent in your outside life, nonviolent between your ears. Nonviolence requires, even demands, I'm going to say that word, it even demands a sense of curiosity, and it also demands a word that you are not going to see very much in that subthread. It demands humility. When I do my one-on-ones with people, and I digress for just a moment to tell you how much I love one-on-ones. um, Everyone has decided that I'm going to have a very small roster of people who I walk with on a deep level, on a one-by-one basis. I mean, I wish I could do 40 a week. That would be my optimum. If I could, I would. But in any case, one of the things that I do, because they're Zoom calls, because they're all over the country. They're on the East Coast, they're up in Washington. Where are they? Is that I do what a really great mentor of mine, and it's in there in books on how to do this stuff. You test it out. So there is a difference between, I'm gonna say two things, and I'm gonna pretend I'm looking at Danielle right now. You really like tea. I happen to know that Danielle really likes tea. When I was in North Carolina, I brought her a whole box as a gift. It was called All the Teas. There were like 30 something teas in there. And then I saw her, and on my last night there, she spread them all out. It was amazing. You had your green tea, you had your white tea, you had your herbal tea, you had your black tea. You had that tea I can't pronounce, rooibos. It was in there too, the red tea. Anyway, so I can say some things about Danielle. Now, there are 37 teas. She's going to like some more than others. So if I say, you really like the white tea, what is embedded in what I am telling her? There is acute accusation there. There is contempt there. There is saying that obviously this is something she likes that the rest of the world doesn't, and there must be something wrong with Danielle that she likes the white tea, as opposed to, you really like the white tea. And then I test it. I test her nonverbal. I test her to see, yeah, I tried it. I like the elderberry, but I kind of like the herbal orange tea better. Okay, now I know a little bit more about Danielle. And so when I get her a full size tea, I know to get her the orange spice. Because I'm not telling Danielle who she is or what she stands for. This is a big deal. It's a big deal. I'm asking her. I'm testing it out, and I'm seeing whether or not she feels safe enough with me to tell me the truth, because that little exchange in her living room could have gone either way. You know, here I am. I bought her the tea. I am obviously invested in her liking white tea. Oh, yeah, I liked it. Thank you. Even if, she's waiting for me to get on the plane back to San Diego so she can dump all the white teas. But if she tells me, if she trusts me enough to tell me the truth, wasn't my favorite. I like the orange. Now I know how to serve her best with Hesed heart. And because of the tea, now I can go deeper with her. I was talking to a person that I did a one-on-one with, and we were talking about the right to speak into each other's lives. And I do that on the daily at Lace on Race. And I tell you, it's a privilege I do not take lightly. It is a privilege that you give to me to be able to say, I meet you here. I want to know where you want to go. And I am going to align with you and walk with you shoulder to shoulder, eye to eye, and help you get there. And I'm going to say some things that might be hard to hear, but I'm going to say them anyway. But I'm going to say them with Hesed heart and with deep curiosity and humility. And you will never, ever, as much as I can help it, see contempt in my eyes, see myself setting myself apart and above from you. When that happens, there's no way that true, as Martin Buber would say, true meeting can happen. And see, here's the part in that exchange that I want you to read that wasn't there. There was not meeting. He had already decided what I believed based upon an erroneous interpretation of what of what I actually do believe. He didn't read the guidelines. He hasn't read the 10th post. He doesn't know what I think. What he does know is that I swathe myself with critical race theory. Here's the problem. Wait for it. He doesn't have an accurate grasp of what critical race theory is. So it's really hard to be accusatory and contemptuous of someone for believing something and you can't really define it well. So, when we have these tough discussions, when we talk about boycotts and mindful consumerism, is there a such thing as ethical consumerism? And we're going to keep talking about that. When we talk about money, and you know, I hit hard on it. When we talk about the fact that we're still at half and what this is going to mean for this space and this community. Is it possible to be here day after day after day, 10,000 of you, and hold yourself above and apart from the Western Star, the long-term health and longevity of this space? Is that holding this space in a contemptuous, top-down, above and apart way? And yeah, we're going to talk about critical race theory because it's important. Because A, everybody needs to have a working definition of what it is. It's being bandied about it. It used to be in legal circles. Now it's in a number of different disciplines, including sociology, including education, which is where the rumbles really are, including psychology, including everywhere where voices at one point were not heard. And the narrative was at best incomplete and at worst distorted and untrue. I don't think that it is beyond the pale, and I'm using that on purpose. I don't think that it's beyond the pale to say that the history that every single one of us has gotten all the way up to 2021, and it's better than it was than 40 years ago when I graduated high school. This is my 40th anniversary of graduating high school. Yes, I'm that old. I assumed that everything I was being taught, that large swaths of what I was being taught, was a lie. I knew that there were not happy Negroes and Negresses scampering across the cotton fields. I knew that the definition of states' rights was at best specious and at worst laughable. I know that the attempt to try to put a period on civil rights and basically saying that, 1964 Civil Rights Act, it's a done deal, we don't have to do anything anymore, was an absolute lie. And that's obviously true because here I am. Most of the stuff that we're talking about when it comes to critical race theory, when you take the pieces parts, and by the way, there is no lump sum, kind of like, the all the T's that I gave Danielle in North Carolina. There is no all the critical race theory. And by the way, critical race theory, like so many other things, most things really, pretty much everything actually, has been appropriated and co opted by various other movements to the good, particularly when it's starting from the premise that we have had incomplete, incomplete narratives by very specific cohorts that use that narrative for their own aggrandizement. So to the degree that that's true, and critical race theory says that, and I say that, yeah, you don't have to look at me in an accusatory way and wag your finger and say, she's into critical race theory. She thinks that black and brown people were harmed. She hates white people. Before I end this, I want to make sure that the person who I really hope is watching this video, and who, in fact, I made this video for, honestly, is hearing me when I say this. When I say this, and I want each and every one of you to hear it. And comment below. And comment below. I do not hate white people. I hate white supremacy. And it is crucial that that distinction be acknowledged. I do not hate even white culture, particularly when it goes into disparate parts and it's not this lump. Norwegian culture, Lithuanian culture, Irish culture, Welsh culture, Australian culture, which is a hybrid, just like the United States is. There's no such thing as a United States white culture, European culture in general, and all its permutations. I don't hate that. What I hate is the cult of whiteness. And that's always funny when people accuse me of being a cult leader, and what I'm doing is promulgating a cult when they are swathed in their own saffron robes of the cult of whiteness. Critical race theory is about taking a lens and seeing what has not been seen for whatever reason, saying what has yet to be said, that needs to be said, that allows us to take a fuller and more accurate version of the last 400 to 600 years. How can anybody have a problem with that? We can call it another name if you like. I have no problem with that. Critical race theory can be called radical truth telling. It's not theory. It can be called a complete and encompassing and inclusive shared story of this country. And I absolutely understand how, for some people, that's a threat. But if you're watching me and you're not the person who treated me with contempt for the last couple days, that should not threaten you. It should excite you and galvanize you. Anything that brings us closer to truth should be something that is exciting. We should never be afraid of truth. So we're going to talk about CRT, the core premises, the overarching stuff, and we're going to see where it aligns with my own theories and premises here at Lace on Race, because what I'm doing here is indeed unique, and where there's divergence. You know that as a working class girl who is not a subject to the academy, that I, even though I would like to think that I've got some intellectual and academic heft, do not align myself there. I align myself very firmly on the corner of Euclid and Logan. Oh, gee, San Diego girl. That is to say that to make history not only inclusive, but accessible, and to make sure that every story is told, not just the usual suspects. How can that be anything other than a good thing? That this does not weaken the Republic. This strengthens the Republic. Because once we can take stock and confront and acknowledge and to our marrow tell the truth about our history, all of our histories, then we can have the conversation that this poster says he wants to have, but is in truth not at all ready for. But let me tell you what I told him when he is ready to meet me fully as a non-ambiguous Black woman. If he is ready to meet me as the benevolent owner of the Lace on Race Kitchen and Cafe, when he is ready to lay down his arms, I will be there for him with Hesed heart, just like I am here for you every day, every day, every day. No contempt, openness, no contempt, curiosity, no top down, eye to eye. Who we are as we ask the questions and discuss among ourselves matters. And it's something that white people as a group have never learned to do well, which is why I wake up in the morning. We get you here on race. We keep you here on applied relational ethics. Let's roll.